faceoff. Shoots it, deflected. Right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie sparkling on that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 74 of Tendy Talk, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network and the BLPA Podcast Networks. I'm your host, Joe, better known as Wash Up Goalie on social media. This week I chat with Cody Karpinski of the Pensacola Ice Flyers of the SPHL. Cody made me envious by calling in from Pensacola Beach. Not just from the city, but actually on the beach. So, audio isn't perfect, but it's still a great listen. So, without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Cody. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. I appreciate it, especially considering we just started exchanging text, yesterday?
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes when the idea is hot, it's better to just go with it, right?
Yeah, when the stars align, you know, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of fun to talk to you because I've heard your appearances on the In Goal magazine and heard you talk there. So the struggle I think a lot of podcasts hosts have is to keep things fresh and not ask the same darn questions that you've probably been asked over and over.
Hey, no, but everybody's got a different audience, right? So,
yep.
It's don't just let it flow how you want it to flow. Don't worry about trying to be different, or if you want to ask this something maybe that you heard me answer before. Feel free to ask it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to your point, every audience is different. And well, I hope the people that listen to my podcast also listen to the In Goal podcast because they give invaluable information, from the technical side to equipment. It's great. But, one thing I like to ask everybody is how did you get started playing the game of hockey? I mean, you're born in Canada, so it's probably natural, but what got you started in the game?
I think I would guess like most kids back in the day, their parents.
Yeah.
Not so much my mom, but my dad was a hockey fan, and I can't remember that far back, but I do. My first memories of hockey are just in front of a television, listening to the Hockey Night in Canada anthem.
Yep.
Watching Peter Puck and just pretending to be a goalie or something, you know what I mean? So it starts kind of then, and anyone that's had kids, you can be, it's easy to influence your kids. So that's probably where it started, I would guess.
You mentioned Peter Puck, and I wish they would bring him back in, not just Hockey Night in Canada, but the NHL embrace Peter Puck and the awesomeness that he is. I actually have a T-shirt with him on there, and it's
no way. Cool.
It's just an awesome little guy that they need to bring him back.
Oh, I think the simplicity of just a simple cartoon character, nothing crazy.
Yep.
Nothing over the top, just very simple and wholesome. Some good values, just to help bring kids along, to want them to enjoy more of the simpler things about hockey, and just not to turn it into something crazy and outrageous, just wholesome fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm full on. I agree with you on that one.
And maybe come up with a goaltender version for Peter Puck so that he has something to go on. But I don't know what that would be offhand. But I've always loved Peter Puck. So, like you said, like most kids, you're introduced to the game because of your parents watching Hockey Night in Canada. What drew you between the pipes and said, you know what, rather than shooting the puck, I want to stand in front of it?
Well, like I said, my memory's bad, but I do remember from the very beginning that just the look of the goalie, they always drew a little more attention back then, and they had big personas. Like they seem like superheroes to me.
Yeah.
it kind of, that analogy is I think fairly accurate. Like they just seem like superheroes to me, kind of special, and I gravitated towards that and how they looked. The
Yeah.
goalie masks were huge for me. They each had their own identity, and the names of the goalies, just everything about them. I just found it drew me to that, and I, as I grew up, I was definitely loved to be the center of, you know, the praise and the attention and all of that. You were kind of if you did a good job, everyone thought, wow, it was kind of neat. So I loved all of that stuff about it, and it just seemed like a real cool position.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny you mentioned the praise, and I never really thought about the stresses we were putting our parents through watching the game until I got older, and then it really hit home this 2 weeks ago. I was at the Minnesota Boys State High School hockey tournament, and it was the semifinal game. And my kid's school was in it. That's why we went, and the goalie's family, Ben Dardis, his family was sitting, in the rows in front of us and just watching, not just mom and dad, but aunts and uncles, grandma and grandpa, you just their stress throughout the game. And it's like I never really thought about what I was putting them through. Um,
Yeah.
because I think most goalies, yeah, we have kind of that anxiety throughout the game, but we're not nearly as stressed out as they are in those situations. It's almost like,
Yeah.
I don't know, even today in the beer leagues, when the puck's on the other end, I think that's when I get into my own head and it's like, oh, nothing good's happened lately. It's, something's got to go soon. And then it happens. But when that breakaway is coming down, that I'm cool as a cucumber. It's like, all right, here we go. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens here. And it's one of those things though that I think most goalies don't think about.
Yeah. Well, I don't think at that when you're younger, especially, you really are very considerate about anything your parents are thinking. It's not really, at least when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I look back at my childhood, and there was lots of regret, not regret, just looking back and go, man, I just wish I had been a little more um, thankful and
Mhm.
gracious in my pursuit of my dreams. It was like I was like beeline, and I was just go, 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 and never really ever took the time to think about maybe what I was putting my parents through. And you're right, it wasn't until I became a hockey parent and a hockey goalie dad that you realized so, how how stressful it can be for being a goalie parent, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I've had the talks with my dad of uh, being focused, and they understood, I think, more than we give them credit for, as to our focus and maybe our being naive or just oblivious to other things that were going on, or the way we reacted to them, is
Hmm.
because it wasn't important to us. So like, no, this is our focus right now. And so at least I've had that discussion with my dad before. It actually was a really fun day. I got to the point where I was done with college and everything else, and rather than him taking me to a Chicago Cubs baseball game, I took him to the game. And one of his old firehouses was about a mile or so from the ballpark. So we parked there and just walked through the neighborhood to the ball game, just talking about,
Oh, cool.
my youth and everything else. And it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are sometimes when you have that chance later on in life to go back and not redo, but just have some gratitude and try
Yep.
to return, pay it forward back to your parents and everything they've done for you.
Ye-
I unfortunately both my father and my mother passed away at 59 and 61.
Oh
So
boy.
um, it was there was a lot of a lot of reflection, and it was tough when you weren't able to do some of those things.
Yep.
And even towards the end of their lives, that I was loving the game and doing, I'd come around a lot, but I was still very me driven. And I was off in another part of the world and doing my thing. And even during the Olympics in '98. My dad died just the year before. My mom was still around, and she came. My in-laws came, and they're all there supporting, and it was great. But I remember being totally like, okay, I can't talk to you guys, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, instead of maybe savoring that a little more, because when I did get a chance to see my mom and stuff, I didn't show her the time that I wished I had. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny too, because you mentioned, as we get older, they're still our biggest fans.
Hmm.
I sent my dad a text just this week, about my beer league game, because I've never been very good at playing the puck. And this week, I don't know what it was. I decided to come out of the net and play the puck a little bit more. And I came out, I stopped the puck, to the right of the net, and had two guys coming down. And I don't know, something just clicked this week. I never paid attention to, what hand the guys, were, but there were two defenders coming at me as I've got the puck, and the left-handed guy was on this side, the right-handed guy was on this side. So I was just like, well, their sticks are going the opposite way. And I just had the head pass. Again, not good playing the puck, but I went tape to tape, and the guy went down and scored. And, I texted my dad. I was like, yeah, I still suck at playing the puck, but man, did I have a sweet pass this week and got an assist. He goes, well, good to see some things you're consistent with some things, and you haven't gotten better with it. But yeah, it's kind of fun that I still feel the need at this age to, send them those texts after the beer league games.
Oh, that's a gift. That's a blessing for
Yeah.
sure that you still get to do that. That's
Absolutely. So, getting back to you playing hockey, you're born in Canada, you wind up playing junior hockey, and then you wind up playing
mm,
in the minor leagues, the old ECHL, and the even older, the IHL. I'm old enough to remember the IHL. And a lot of these kids listening to the podcast are like, what the heck is that? Really the
yeah.
IHL at the time was the AHL. It
Well,
was,
it was good league.
yeah, I mean, the AHL was around, but it was, the IHL was kind of the step down from the NHL, from what I remember.
Yeah,
So
no, there are a lot of good players. There's a lot, the difference for me back then that I really noticed was there were a lot of younger players in the American League,
mhm,
and then there were more experienced guys going a little more for the money
mhm.
in the IHL, and and the cities were definitely better.
Yeah.
uh, there were still some pits, but there were some really good cities too. Whereas the American League at the time had a lot of holes. uh, that's how I remember it, anyways. I was jaded.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, being from Chicago, I'm to this day still a Wolves fan, and it's,
Oh yeah,
that was a pretty good stop along the way to play some hockey. Nice little building they have out there.
yeah. There's some really cool cities, especially on the Western swing. They San Diego
Yeah.
and those teams out that way were in the eye at the time, and
Yeah.
a lot of good cities.
San Diego, they were the Spiders, weren't they?
Oh no, they were the Gulls,
Oh yeah.
San
What?
Diego Gulls.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why am I thinking the Spiders? I know there was a Spiders somewhere, but yeah, the Gulls, and now they've come back to the AHL. They've resurrected that team, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, I when I was back working for LA and the Ontario Reighn were in the minors, and I used to love going over to San Diego. I thought it was one of the best play. If I could have resurrected my career in the minors somewhere, that would be it. It was really cool place.
Well, how could you not want to play there? I mean, you go do your time on the ice and then walk out of the arena, and you're in San Diego, where it's like 78 and sunny 98% of the time.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really cool is the building was a bit of a old relic, but because being the goalie coach, I would sit up top, and they didn't have a presser for me to sit, so I would just sit in the stands,
Uh-huh.
and the fans there are nuts. Like you would go to the beginning of the game, and the game would start, and it looked like it'd be half full, and you're like, what's going on? And sure enough, you go in the lobby, they were still in the lobby getting their fill of their beer, and they would kind of slowly roll in, and by the end of the first period and into the second, that place was rocking, and those fans are crazy. It was a pretty good mix of like college and
Hmm.
a younger crowd. It was really neat.
And I've heard that, San Diego might not have a huge hockey following, but the following they have, it's like a cult
Oh
following.
yeah,
They're going
oh
to show up every single day and they're going to
yeah, they're
be on
diehards
their game.
for sure.
Which I don't know, as a player, I'd prefer that over, the big following of casual fans that aren't paying attention and really don't know what's going on.
Well, you go to a lot of NHL games, a lot of barns, and it's lost that feel.
Yep.
It's because the tickets are so expensive, and it's like a big event to go to one of those games, and they're usually spending it as like a big date, like to go out and do something, as opposed to I'm going to support my team, and that's kind of the purpose.
Yep.
So it's like you see a lot of wealthy and people are, it's not the same vibe as going to say a minor league game or even a junior game for that matter, where it's solely about supporting your team and
Yeah.
that's it.
My mom and dad, I think it was around 2002, they had tickets to a Blackhawks game and they're going in, and my dad sees another fireman he knows, and the other guy goes, well, hey, we got suite tickets, we got extra room, you guys want to come to the suite? And they're like, well, yeah, we're not going to pass up the free food and drinks. And
Yeah, yeah.
so they go, and my mom was like, I was really disappointed. Me and your dad were the only ones that actually sat in a seat and watched the hockey game. Everybody else was just like not backs to the game. And she's like, what's the point in spending that money if you're not even going to watch the game?
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, I actually I haven't been to an NHL game in a couple seasons, but I took my son to see the Blackhawks and Wild this weekend in St. Paul. And I mean, we got, I'm the kind of fan, I want to get there early. I want to watch warm ups. And because I
Yeah.
had him, we went down by the glass to watch the Hawks warm up. And then we get up to our seats, and, like, we make sure we're in our seats for the puck drop. And,
Yeah.
we're just sitting there intent watching the whole game. And the
That's not
people,
usual.
yeah, it's like the people that are just, if I miss some of the play, I miss some of the play. Although we did leave with about 30 seconds left in the first period to go down and get our concessions, because it was like, there's a stoppage in play. Not much is going to happen. Let's beat the rush. And we were back in our seats before everybody left theirs to go get their concessions. So it was good timing there.
I just want to say there is one, place that I still believe has a real good vibe, and I'm not saying that there's a ton of teams
Yeah.
out there that, that probably have great fans, but I will say LA is a pretty good vibe when you're there.
Hmm.
Um, there are a lot of rich people and celebrities and whatnot, but it's still a big party and it's pretty cool. It's still
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Well, and I think some people learned in the LA Cup runs the number of actual hockey fans that are celebrities. Like, they know the
Oh yeah.
game. Like Pat Sajak, Will Ferrell is a big hockey fan. Even
Oh yeah.
Snoop Dogg. I mean, Snoop Dogg knows the game, and he's a
Yeah.
fan of it. There's a lot of celebrities out there that know the game. And what did I hear? Pat Sajak's been a season ticket holder since like 1987. Coming to every game, and I think some people are like, no, that can't be true.
Yeah. Oh, for
Um,
sure. The it's funny. Sometimes it takes a cup run or whatever. And
yeah,
Gretzky obviously was the biggest reason for that turnaround in that city. But actually winning the cup and then winning it again really changed the whole vibe of that
yeah.
city. And the pride in actually being a hockey town and a hockey champion
Hmm.
changes a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Because for so long people think LA, they think either the Dodgers or the Lakers, and
yeah,
all of a sudden the Kings are like, wait a minute, no, we're here too, and we're pretty darn good.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a cool vibe, and it's I still have a lot of great memories from that place.
When you talk memories, somewhere along the way, as you're playing minor league hockey here in the States, you wind up in Japan.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is the early days of the internet. So it's not like you're out there discovering, the Japanese league. Some of these kids today, they're just trying to stick around in the game, and they're traveling through Sweden or,
yeah,
wherever.
yeah.
And, you know, I'm probably one of those people that I've been like, sign me up. I'll go to Japan if it means I get to keep playing. How the heck did you find out about pro hockey in Japan in those days?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't me by any means. It was like, how did it actually happen? I got a phone call. I was going to maybe my third NHL team camp, and I was going to go to my third NHL camp, and I hadn't signed with the team yet, and I was wondering where I was going. I got a call from Dave King,
Mm-hmm.
and back then Dave King was Mr. Hockey Canada, and well respected, and he told me that he had been approached and signed a big deal with the Japanese Hockey Federation to build the hockey program there for the Olympic program, because they were heading into the 98 Olympics, and this would have been in like 94,
Yeah.
I think, and asked if I would be interested in going over there and playing in the pro league with the intent to obtain my Japanese citizenship and then play for the Olympic team. So this Dave King, kind of his big plan was to find as many Japanese Canadians that were playing pro and bring them over to the league and build that league, and bring over some higher end import players to build up the league, et cetera, et cetera. So he was the one kind of running all of that, and asked me, and I think at the time it might have been 11 guys or so. Um, and I asked, I had a family. I'd already had 3 kids at the time. And I was like, well, I really want to, keep pursuing, and for my, get a break and whatnot. He said that what they could offer me. And then I was like, that's kind of where I had to. Everyone thinks that it was the Olympics that made me make the decision, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. It was
Right.
literally, I was able to support my family better. So I went over there with the idea to play through to 98, the Olympics, and then come back.
Yeah.
And it just ended up being that they treated me and my family and financially so well that I just kind of had to put the NHL goals and dreams to bed, and I ended up staying there for 12 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about how they treat you. My first job out of college, I was actually a community newspaper sports editor. In our high school baseball coach, he played a little bit in the major leagues, but he wound up playing baseball over in Japan. And he said the
Mm-hmm.
way they treated them was just so good that he's like, he didn't want to leave until his career was over, because uh, he said it was definitely different. Over there, it is very much what's the right way to put it? There's a lot of respect and
Uh-huh.
honor. Your word means something and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he goes, it was just how could he leave that when they were treating him so well? He almost
Right.
felt bad. So I want to know, how did that conversation go? You get home, you got 3 kids, and you look at your wife and you go, Japan, I think that's our next stop. That had to have been more than just like a 2-minute conversation. How did that one go over?
Well, I was kind of like this, like I told you how I was with my parents all the
Yeah.
way from the time I was little. I was similar in regards with my life and what we were doing. uh, and I don't mean I wasn't a rude bully by any means, but it was like I was very, this is what we're going to do, and I think this is best. And I will say this: she's through my whole career was. Whatever I wanted to do or needed to do, or it was just a lot of supporting and nodding your head, and because they, all of them, the family put up with a lot of change, constant change,
Yeah.
and travel and whatnot throughout my career. So, but yeah, there was, and we weren't in a financial position at the time to go, well, you know what, maybe if we just the opportunity and the money was there, right there,
Yeah.
and I didn't have that luxury to weigh my options. it was the right move at the time, and then it ended up being a great move. I didn't plan for it to be what it was, but it ended up being uh, the best decision in my life. And you know what? It's funny because you know a lot when I was growing up in my young adulthood, there was a lot of time where I was like, man, I was ranked number 1 in Central Scouting. I had these high aspirations. I should have been this. I should have been a number 1 in the NHL. But as time went on, I realized I was given a really good gift, and I should be thankful that I was able to provide and do well for myself and play the game I love for so long, refine my heritage. There's so many things that I am grateful for that I'm like, you know what? It didn't lead me down the path I thought I was supposed to go on, but it led me down the right path.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up being the right path for me.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And you mentioned your heritage, being Japanese Canadian, how in touch with your heritage were you? Or was it
Yeah.
like a full immersion, like, hey, I know I'm Japanese, but now I gotta learn what it means when we get over there.
Yeah, I got to play the part now. No,
Yeah.
I, I, my grandma and my grandpa, I was very close to on my dad's side,
Hmm.
but my grandpa uh, spoke barely any, and my grandma spoke no English, and I'd I'd stay with them all day, be babysat by them all day, and I don't know, I just somehow communicated with them. I
Yep.
never learned Japanese, but so I definitely knew where I came from and my heritage. But I was so a busybody. It was as soon as I left there, I wasn't thinking about wow, my Japanese heritage. I got to find out more about that. As soon as I left my grandma and grandpa's house, I was like back to being just me in Canada,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until this all happened with me and I went there that I was like, holy smokes, I got a huge new spark under my butt to find out more about where I actually came from on part of me
Yeah.
and my family, and then I had to learn some Japanese to communicate, also to get my citizenship, and it just it just brought out this whole other side of me that I was very proud of, and learned so much about my family that I never knew about, that my parents, my dad never ever spoke about, with the internment camps and all of that during the war, and so much history that I never cared about.
Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
you say that because that generation, for whatever reason, didn't like to talk about their past.
Yeah.
And I think about my grandparents, at least the three I got to meet, because I never met my grandpa on my dad's side. He passed away when my dad was young. Uh, but my grandmother on my dad's side, she grew up in England and was a war bride.
Hmm.
And they're like most of her youth, we don't know much about. Like, we understand that we know the town she grew up in. We've actually all been back there and walked around the village. But when war broke out, she was sent up into the northern countryside to work in one of the royal palaces. We're like, where's the connection? We don't know. But that was
Yeah.
how the family kept her safe. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents are from Holland. My grandpa fought for the Dutch resistance army. He was I
Wow.
only know this because towards the end of his life, I started asking him questions. And so I know he defused bombs. So if you've ever seen the movie The Hurt
Oh wow.
Locker, that was
Yeah.
him without all of the stuff. It was just,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but I know he was stationed in what he called French Indochina, which is now the Philippines, and then Africa. And he was telling me that, yeah, when they got bored, when they were in Africa, they would go wrestle the uh, crocodiles. And I was like, no, you didn't, Grandpa. And he goes, yeah, I did. And I go, oh, okay. And he goes, go down into my workshop and look on top of the wood pile. And he had the hide of one of the crocodiles. I was like,
No way.
there's still a little bit of skepticism because you can buy that kind of stuff, but I'm gonna take your word now. But then my grandma, who we can say all of us grandkids, even my mom and aunt, will say, she wasn't the nicest of ladies. She didn't have a lot of love in her, but her and
Right.
her family hid Jews from the Nazis. And I'm going, okay, Grandma, you're kind of a badass. You've got a pass to not be very nice these days because you did something pretty, pretty awesome. But it was like, these are things that we had to pry out of them to find out about their
Yeah.
past. And it's like, I would love to have had like the whole history of what they
Right.
were doing in those times, but they didn't want to talk about it. And when my grandparents came over from Holland, they wanted to be American. So yeah, there were certain things they still did. Some of the cuisine. There's one dish that they made and I still love. And now my wife, who's not Dutch, has learned how to make it because she's like, this is delicious. But they wanted to be American. And then again, when my grandma came over from England, there were some things, but she's like, hey, this is where I live now. She never did lose the accent though. She always had that great English accent. And my friends loved it when they would come over and she was there. So you go over to Japan, you bring the family with you. It's not like you were over there for 1 or 2 seasons. I mean,
Hmm.
you in essence raised your kids in Japan in the early
Yeah.
days. I mean, what was that like? But at the same time, once you decide to leave Japan and come back to Canada, how did they handle that? Because I would
Hmm.
assume they almost viewed Japan as home at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing we really, looking back, tried to do was not create I don't want to say not create a home, but not say one place is home.
Yeah.
We considered we would play the season. They finished the school year. We'd fly from Tokyo to Vancouver and stay 2.5 months or whatever
Hmm.
with my mom and dad, and my grandma and grandpa lived downstairs, and we would just stay in that house, all of
Yeah.
us. And then we would fly to Florida or Indiana, depending. For years they were my in-laws were in Florida, and we would stay with them for the rest of the summer and then fly back to Tokyo. And so we just did that all the time. And we even would go back sometimes for Christmases, every other Christmas, I would say, uh, and not spend it in Tokyo. But we did that a lot and just made sure we made that they had a good sense of grandparents on both sides
Hmm.
and family on where they are from and who, they're American, they're Canadian, uh, and they're Japanese. And they just never said, I'm Canadian or I'm this or I'm
Yeah.
that. They just felt a little bit of a melting pot of themselves. And, they stayed for 9 years. And then the last 3 seasons, I played I went over by myself, and we decided that because the the older boys, my daughter had already was graduating, so she was on, going to be on her own and everything.
Hmm.
But my older boys were right at that age where, Jonah, the goalie son, he would have been in Adam, like,
Hmm.
and then going into Adam, and my other son would have been in Pee Wee, and I was like, you know what? I think maybe we and my wife thought it was best that they kind of build a base now in Canada
Yeah.
because they wanted to do hockey more seriously, and I thought it was just getting around that time where you don't want to be too late in coming back home and be really out of place.
Yeah. Pretty
Just
disruptive ages.
personally too, in school and going into high school and stuff. So we elected to go that route, and every year it was great. I was having the time of my life hockey wise, but it was just getting a little each year. After that last year, I came home and I was like, yeah, they want to sign me again. And wife was like, if you sign that contract, you can pretty much stay there.
Well, yeah, I mean, because
The
this was
writing was
before
on the wall.
FaceTime and all of that. So, I mean, it's not, and you weren't calling every night because, you had to wait till after 7 o'clock to get long distance rates.
Yeah, it was tough. And I was flying back and forth, and I I remember at the end in I can't remember. It would have been 2004. And through 3 and 4, my mom was dying of cancer, So I was flying back and
Yeah.
forth because a couple times they thought it was the end, and I was flew back, and she hung on, and I flew back again, and so it was just getting to be a little bit much. And although I thought I was doing a lot of it for my family, uh, I thought that it was more important that maybe I hang him up and find another path and try to be around my family. And so that's I think it was 06 when I finally packed it in.
Yeah. So, you're talking about your mother. When you made that 98 Olympic team for Team Japan,
Hmm.
you make that call home to mom, you know, what was that like? There had to be a certain sense of pride for her knowing that you were playing for Team Japan,
Hmm.
representing your heritage.
Well, the whole it was a long process. So the it was long before the actual Nagano actually came about that
Mm-hmm.
you know the goal was to have me on that team, and so I kind of knew that I was going to be on that team so long as I got the actual passport. And so she was, they had planned and they prepared, and we flew all of my in-laws, my mother, over for the actual Olympics themselves. So the 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 actual conversation would have been more after it was all done,
Mm-hmm.
and we had sat down. I actually remember the one time I did have a moment actually to sit with them and whatnot was in between games. It wasn't done yet, and I met them at McDonald's. But it was a McDonald's like it was the weirdest thing. But Dave King and his wife were there, and we were all just met there to kind of see our families and whatnot. And uh, she was very very proud of me, and I think there was a lot of feelings going on with her because my dad was gone, and wasn't able, and my son had uh, I think he was born right after that. So, and just that the successions of those few things were just, there was a lot.
Yeah.
So after we finally were able to sit back and talk about it, she was a lot more open in showing her love and support, and just how proud she was.
That's awesome. Now, you had mentioned you decided to hang the skates up playing wise, and then you move on to that next chapter. And for you, that was becoming a goalie coach.
Hmm.
Um, when you were playing, did you think that was going to be the next chapter, or was it just opportunity knocked and you jumped at it?
0% chance. If you had asked me as a player, or even a year or two after,
Yeah.
couple 2 3 years after, I would have said no. I purposely left the game because I was retiring under reasons, not because I didn't want to play anymore or I didn't think I could play anymore. I actually did it for the family, and I don't regret it. It was the right decision. But it was hard for me to be around the game
Hmm.
because I felt I could play. I really wanted to play, and I didn't. So I didn't even consider being a coach. I I dug my feet into a business. We opened a smoothie shop and in White Rock, British Columbia, and I was like, that was my thing. I was going to be a businessman, and then '08 hit, and I lost everything, and then I was literally just reeling. When I mean everything, I mean everything,
Hmm.
and I ended up getting a job at a dealership. A friend of mine that I bought all my cars through my whole career from, helped me find a dealership, and I started friggin' selling cars. And I was like, this is hell. It's my life has turned into pure hell, and I was very down. It was a low point. It was, uh, and I hadn't stopped drinking. It was like part of my whole career and my life, and a few things led me to realize, I got to find my life again, and and do something I love, because that's when I'm at my best. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna try to get back in the game. And I thought, well, goalie coach would be the only thing that I feel I could maybe do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started just, made that first step and made a couple calls to for buddies, old teammates. And I talked to Billy Ranford, and Corey Hirsch was a big influence in the early days, just in helping me make some moves and talking to some people, giving me emails of GMs and stuff. So I remember I got an interview with Seattle in the WHL,
Mm-hmm.
and Russ Falwell there hired me, and it was just like I went there maybe 6 days in the month. So I'd go, a couple times a month down there, and I just to see if I was any good at it, and two, if it was something I could really be passionate about. And and I was still I was still at the dealership, and doing this at the same time. And I was like, man, I just got a spark again. Like I want to be around the rink.
Yep.
And then I realized that I was actually pretty good at it. Like I had this ability to connect with the people, and get people. These conversations I was having with guys really seemed to make an impact. And I and I started using all my past experiences to help teach them, and not just these good ones, but a lot of my mistakes, and just helping them focus on becoming a professional, if they want to make that jump to become a pro hockey player. And Calvin Pickard was my first big project, because he was a highly touted guy, and I wanted to help him make that step, right?
Yep.
And after the second year, I realized I want to do this.
Yeah.
So sorry, after the first year, I realized I want to do it. So I talked to Hershey, and he gave me all the list of GM's emails in the NHL, and I just made an email and a resume, and also contacted all my connections in the NHL world and said, hey, I'm going to want to do this. And after the second year, I got I talked to my buddy Wade Flaherty in Winnipeg, and I got it. He said they were a little far in the process, and they were going to hire a development guy, and that
Mm-hmm.
was not the norm back then in the
Yeah.
NHL. And I said, well, that's my job. That's in my wheelhouse, man. And he's going, well, you would like to do that? And I said, dude, yeah. And he said, well, I'll see if I can maybe get you an interview. And Heisinger called me 2 days later and said, would you be willing to fly to Winnipeg? And I did, and I got that job. And that's kind of where it all kind of started. And my first project was Hutch, and he went from the East Coast to the NHL. And the next year it was Helly, and,
Yeah.
and it just kind of took off.
Yeah. And I mean, it wound up bringing you to the West Coast, so a little bit of a warmer climate than Winnipeg, and you wind up,
Yeah.
with the Kings and in their organization.
Hmm.
Um, and it was while with that organization, you're working with Ontario. That's Ontario, California, not
Yeah. Right. Right.
Toronto. Is guys like uh, Bissonnette didn't realize until he had to go there. um, and you get to coach a goalie that you knew pretty well, your son. What
Oh,
was
yeah.
what was that like? That
Yeah.
coaching your son at the pro level.
It was for sure. I would say the biggest highlight of my coaching career, because it combined my family with my coaching career.
Yeah,
Uh, it unfortunately, I think it added an element to Jonah's path that maybe was a little too hard difficult for him to overcome a lot of the outside noise that was
Mm-hmm.
happening and whatnot. But I'm forever thankful for that opportunity, and I think now Jonah is as well, looking back at it, that that never happens. And for it to happen the way it did and whatnot is something we can take to our graves and be very proud and thankful for.
Now, the car ride home after those games, was it like youth hockey goalie dads where you were just picking apart his play, or was it a little more supportive?
Yeah, no, I I feel I learned my craft and what I do, and my philosophy always has been as a parent to be just a parent and a
Yeah.
loving, supporting parent. And I did both separately. I made sure that that was first and foremost. Uh, but if we were to ever have a moment of talking about certain things and it was hockey, it was hockey. But um, I really thought the most important thing was to be a support to him, because there was so much outside noise about all that stuff that I needed to be more of a support. Hang on one
Yep.
sec. Just let me,
Yep.
sorry.
No
Sorry,
worries.
my home phone.
No worries. And for anybody watching the video of this, there's a beautiful display in the background of two jerseys because you had the really unique opportunity to be an EBUG for the Reighn for a game that your son was starting. I mean, that locker room experience. I mean, I play beer league with some, father son duos, and that's cool that they're in the locker room together and
Hmm.
experiencing that. But to be in a pro hockey locker room getting ready for a game with your son, I mean, that had to have just, aside from, getting married and the birth of your kids, it's got to be right up there with the Olympics, I would assume.
Well, I think I've said it on a number of occasions that when people ask me, like, actual highlights of my career, period,
Yeah.
hockey, coaching, playing, whatever, that was definitely the highlight of my career. Um, and I think I can speak for a lot of people that are parents that, when you can combine something you love in your family, it, that's the ultimate. And that kind of opportunity just doesn't happen like like it did. And
Yeah.
as as tense and crazy as it was, looking back at it, it was there was no greater highlight for me. I won a lot of championships over in Japan, which were awesome. Like, just such a thrill to be part of a team winning something,
Yeah.
and then the Olympics. Uh, it's funny though, the Olympics is actually quite a ways down in some of my uh, thrills and achievements of what I am most proud of. I loved it and it was awesome, but there's just something more. Another level when I could be a part of something with my son that, his first American League hockey game. And I was just like, just as a parent, I'm not talking about as a coach. I was just
Yeah.
like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I'm like, it would be cool just to say if your son was going to play in the American Hockey League and you just go and get tickets and you're like there supporting, what a rush, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm his freaking backup goalie on the bench right there, and I'm his coach.
Yeah.
It was just like you couldn't have wrapped it up better, all into one big, nice, awesome golden prize.
The writers down the street in Hollywood couldn't have scripted it better.
No, no,
No.
it was pretty awesome.
Definitely a memory, for the whole family. After coaching in LA, though, you made an interesting move. You could have stayed in the NHL, but you decided to go become the goalie coach for the Red Stars over in
Mm-hmm.
China, and almost bringing the Olympics stuff full circle. They were founded to do the same thing that
Yeah,
happened, in Japan, because of them recently hosting. They wanted to build the
exactly.
game. You know, was that maybe part of the decision because you were part of the Japanese version of the Red Stars in a way to, get some of the Chinese born
Mhm.
players ready to represent their heritage country, I guess we could call them.
Yeah, that obviously was a big part of the discussion in luring me over there. uh, it was definitely a focus of it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the challenge of something new and different, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the financially, it was just something that I couldn't turn down.
Right.
Uh, I believed in my heart that I said, you know what, if I want to go back to the NHL and and become a head guy, I can do that later. But for me, and I said this a million times over, that the NHL and having the title or my goals were never set for me as far as I want to be this in 5 years, or I want to be, the head goalie coach for an NHL team. That was not even anywhere on my list, even low in the list. It just I never cared about that. My goal was to be the best at what I could do, and help people and achieve their dreams. And that was the rush I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
financially, it wasn't, uh, I, w- I needed to find another level financially as a development guy. And LA took care of me, no doubt. And
Yeah.
on that end of spectrum, I was on the upper end for sure. But there was another level I wanted to get to so I could have freedom in my life and do the things I want to do. And making this move to the KHL was, I believe, the right move. And coupled with the fact that there was, they were proposing this idea of me helping build the Olympic program with my experience personally, uh, especially that it's a lower seeded Asian team, never been in the Olympics. It was like the
Yeah.
exact same thing. Um, Different circumstances changed, and you know, I don't know if we want to get into that end of things, because it's been very positive up to this point, this whole podcast.
Yeah, no,
But
yeah, it's interesting because I mean, we look at current geopolitical affairs, even leading up to the Olympics, before what's happening in Ukraine happened, and the tensions were still high over in China. So it was
yeah,
interesting, you know, following some of these North American athletes that were representing China and hearing the stories. And I think that's what got it for me is, some people were hopping on these athletes going, how could you compete for China when they're doing this or they're doing
right,
that. But a lot of the stories I heard, like the goaltender OBrien, he grew up in a household with his two Chinese grandparents, and he grew up with that strong Chinese culture, so it was important to him. And I kind of feel bad now because I put a tweet out there during the Olympics when I just saw his last name O'Brien, is I'm Irish, going, okay, the Irish, we talk about what clan we're a part of, which in Gaelic that means what family and what county you come from. So I put a tweet out there that talked about O'Brien. He's from the you know O'Brien clan, and I forget what province I found. I just Googled Chinese
hmm
provinces. I was having a little fun, but then I heard his story on InGoal magazine. It's like, well, now I feel like a real jerk for putting that out there because not knowing the other side of his family and how tight he really was to that Chinese culture.
yeah,
Of course, it made sense, and um, hearing some of the other stories. Now, there's a few of the athletes where you heard the story and it was simply they weren't going to make the Canadian or the American team, and they weren't going to be good enough for it. So they said, "Hey, I'm gonna go get my Chinese citizenship now." And okay,
right,
you got to be in the Olympics, and I can't fault any athlete for wanting to compete at the highest level.
yeah.
So I think those
Yeah.
arguments could be had every day, and I don't know if anybody's ever right on it. It's what was right for the athlete, what was right for them at the time and in their heart.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they will look at themselves, and that's what the most important thing is. They can look at their decisions and weigh the positives and the negatives or whatever. If they
Yep.
can live with what they've done and choose that they've made a good decision in their lives, uh, that's that's their right, their freedom to do what they want to do. And yeah, everybody has an opinion
Yeah.
on it, on everything, and as do I. You know what I mean? But like, there's some things that I believe that my opinion doesn't. How do I say this? It doesn't diminish what they feel in their hearts about
Right.
what they've done. You know what I mean? So, I I have nothing but love for. I knew all those guys, and whether I wanted to be a part of that or not, that's for me to have inside of me. And whatever they did, if they felt they did their family proud, you
Yep.
know, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, the CCP is not necessarily their family. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, so there's a separation in that. So I I always try to find the good about it. Like, there's a lot of things about that whole Olympic thing
Yep.
as it led up that I had a lot of things, reservations, and problems with. And that's just what I felt. But uh, what you just mentioned about Paris and his grandparents, and that has nothing to do with uh, politics.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what we are reminded every time the Olympics come around is that the people of the nation are not their government.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's tough to separate sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
it's a lot to do with the similarities in the woke cancel culture mob. Is
Yes.
they generalize and paste stuff to people based on small things that they generalize so much. And if you get lumped in with something, you're going to take the fall, man. It doesn't matter whether it has nothing really to do with how you stand as a person, but that's just kind of how it is now in today's culture.
Hmm.
And you know that's kind of a lot of the comments about those players and whatnot are very generalized, and they don't know
Yeah.
really why they did what they did and chose what they chose. And but everybody's a bloody critic nowadays, so.
Yeah. Exactly. And, rather than taking the time to find out the story behind the story, people just jump to their conclusion that they look at, the old don't judge a book by its cover. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know if it's the old journalist in me. I always like to find out the story before I make up my mind, where it's like, okay, this is what I'm seeing, but tell me more. I want to know about this. And I think
Oh,
sometimes people, they don't like to put in the effort to find out.
well, it's tough too. It's tougher even if the average person only does a quick click here and there to
Yep.
find out, and they make their judgment on a couple clicks,
Yeah.
and then that's it. That they've made their mind up, right? And it gets tougher when the mainstream media has usually pushes one thing, and then so if you only are a couple click person, you're usually going to get one version, right?
Yep.
And
On the
it,
people that just read a headline and don't read the story behind it.
and I don't want to get too deep into it, but
Yeah.
just you can click on me now,
Yep.
and 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 the headlines are they're mind-boggling. Like, they're so inaccurate. But if that's all you read,
Right.
then that's what you're gonna get, right? And
Yeah. God forbid people have their own opinions these days, for one, or
yeah,
even consider somebody else's opinion and go, you know what? That's something to think about. I might
yeah,
not agree with them, but they make a good point. People don't like that. They don't like alternate opinions these days. Uh, for whatever reason, I've become a fan of presidential memoirs. And when I was reading Ronald Reagan's, he was famous for him and Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the House at the time. For
Right.
the young kids, that was basically the Nancy Pelosi of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And they were always going against each other. But in the book, he revealed that once a week they would have dinner together. They
Right.
wouldn't talk politics. They would talk about their families, their pets, and all this other stuff. So they got to know each other as people, and they respected each other. So that when they did have these big, public battles, they were also able to first come to an understanding of, okay, what do we agree on first? So that if we don't get anywhere, we at least have a base to agree on. And then everything else is ancillary. We can figure that stuff out along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's a dying thing.
Yeah, it's a thing of the past, I think.
Yeah, it's sad. It's kind of funny with all that had happened to me in the last year that I've really learned a lot about how we are as a society and whatnot. But
Yep.
I how I treated my own business moving forward as a goalie coach from the day I started. I I am going to stand firm with it in how I believe is I got to stay true to me, and as long as I face everything with the intent that I'm out here to help and serve, and if I have good intentions in my heart, that eventually good will come out of it, and I'm going to stick to it, man. I'm not going to give in to, I'm not going to cower
Hmm.
to the crap, but I'm not going to turn this into a big battle
Right.
because it's a waste of my time.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, let's switch gears a little bit because I've been taking up quite a bit of your time here,
That's
and I'm
cool.
appreciative. So I like to end every episode with a list of 10 questions. I used to call them rapid fire, but I can't really do that because they take longer than a rapid fire should be because they bring up other stories, which is
Right,
always
right,
fun.
right. Yeah, yeah.
But what I love about them is they're the same questions I've asked every single guest, from the Bantam goalies straight up to Stanley Cup champions. So
Cool.
it's kind of fun to hear the different answers. And the first one is, what's the craziest coaching moment from your time in hockey where a coach just lost it and you're like, what's going on here?
uh, you know what? There's so many, man. That's a tough one. Um, I'll give you a more recent one though. I was um, I was backing up in Ontario, and it was I backed up a few times, not just with Jonah and and Stutz had the coach, the goalie had let a couple in, and more as a joke than anything, turned and he said, "Imoo," and I was like, it brought back those old memories of that feeling like prior. I'd been so far gone from that it never really it was gone, and all of a sudden that memory of the nod, I was like, what? And then he laughed and it was done. So it was a very small one. It was very small, but a very funny one. That was a crazy coaching memory. But yeah, but when I was playing, man, there's so many, but especially back the junior days,
Oh yeah.
like, so we're talking in the 80s. I talked about one when I had Oli on Kolzig on my podcast. We were in training camp together, and the coach was a nut bar, and from the old Iron League, and he had all the players spar right in the locker room, just right on the floor in the middle, punching each other in the face, and super tough team when I was with the New Westminster Bruins. So I'm sitting there, and I'm still like 130 pounds, like soaking wet, and he's like, "Oli, Dusty, you're next." Oli's 6'4",
Yeah.
240 pounds. And I'm like, and he was like dead serious. So Oli and I had to spar. Like, I'm a goalie, like, and I had no problem fighting people, but I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So that was probably, I'll give you that one. That's probably the best one.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was in a junior camp, and uh, we had 4 goalies on the team at the time, and it was the first week of post camp. So it was actually after the camp. It was like day 2 of regular team practice, I think it was. And the coach goes, "All right, give me 4 lines at the center circle facing each other." We're like, "Okay." And he goes, "On the whistle, the first 2 guys." Basically the old football drill of run right into each other, and we're like, what? And all 4 of us goalies are like, what do you want us to do during this? We're thinking we'll go do some movement drills or something. He goes, "You guys get in line too." And our eyes just are like, why? And for a half hour he was just blowing the whistle, and we were boom boom, and then long whistle, and we're like, oh God, thank you, because we're all just hurting at this point, spending a half hour just going full speed into each other. And he goes, "All right, now I want a line here on the blue line, I want the other line on the goal line. When I blow the whistle, guy in the goal line starts skating up, guy in the blue line just drills them into the boards." And again, us goalies are like, what do you want us to do? And he's like, "Get in line." And we're like, shit. And so we start doing this, and I don't know how long it went, but the rink actually ended that drill because we all kept hitting, and it just seemed to line up right at the door, and the stanchions on the door were getting bent away from the rink. And they're like, "No, we now have to fix the door. You can't do this anymore." And the next day we came into practice, a couple guys had cracked ribs. We're all just bruised, and like we hadn't chosen captains yet, but the guys that were going to be the captains, we talked to them, like, you got to go talk to the coach. This has to be a no contact day. Like, this is ridiculous. And so they went and talked to him, and he wasn't too happy. He thought we were all a bunch of soft hockey players, but it was like, we can't be doing this again. No way. Yeah.
Right
So the next question, and this is a fun one with the 2 behind you. What's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Cheevers.
That's a good one. And that's actually one of the common ones that I get. And I'm kicking myself for not doing this when I started the podcast, but started going back, listening to this portion of the old episodes, and I'm putting together a spreadsheet to see what the breakdown is of the most
Right.
answered one. And there's a couple others we'll get to where you'll go, okay, I wonder what that breakdown is.
My second would be, and this is very easy because, and this shows that childhood memories are very, very important and big. My second one is Kurt Ridley, and like most people will never know who Kurt Ridley is, but he was a Canucks goalie, and he had this simple mask, but it had a white mask with the 2 hockey sticks going across.
Oh yeah,
and that was my other favorite one.
So goalies may not recognize the name, but they would recognize the mask if they saw it.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So
Very cool.
What is your favorite rink that you ever played at?
Oh, there's a bunch. There's some real cool ones, but I would say either Fort Wayne, the Jungle, or the Cincinnati rink was pretty cool. And like there's a lot of other rinks, like away rinks, stuff that were pretty neat. But as far as I was in Cincy for a short time in Fort Wayne, and those 2 rinks, the fans, and it was just crazy.
Yeah,
and, they were pretty cool rinks.
So the next question is, what's your favorite stick that you ever used?
Yeah, that's a good one. I for years and years and years, for most all of my career, I used Louisville, and for a brief, I want to say a year and a half or so, until they ran out. I would have probably used them for the rest of my career, but they stopped making them. I switched to Hespler.
Okay, yeah.
And they made the exact same pattern that I'd used for years, but I switched over to the Hespler, and I can't even remember why I did it, but I did, and they were awesome. And then they stopped making them. So I went back and finished off my career with Louisville's.
Well, I can say you're the first one to bring up the Hessler stick, so that's awesome. What's your favorite youth hockey memory?
um, I don't know if I have like a one, because I back then I achieved a lot of stuff, like I was getting a lot of little individual kind of awards things, but I don't really never cared about that as much. It doesn't hold in my memory.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I remember the most, and it's seared in my brain, is after morning practices, because in Canada we'd have these 6 and 5 in the morning practices before school. I would remember after going to McDonald's and sitting in they would have this train in the McDonald's, and I'd eat hotcakes, and I just thought that was I vividly remember that, associate that feeling of good feeling with hockey,
Yeah.
and playing hockey as a kid. That's the one thing that I'll always remember.
Oh, that's cool. I like that one. So, what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you?
Okay. This is going to be really unpolitically correct. And if this ever were to have happened nowadays, this would be like Twitter
Yeah.
heaven. Um, I was in junior in in Medicine Hat. I was playing for Lethbridge Hurricanes, and there was this one section off to the side, and I forget what section. It was the famous section, like section C, whatever. There's this group, a couple guys or whatever, and famous for their chirping.
Mm-hmm.
And I come to the bench. Sorry, I can't even say this with a straight face. All of a sudden, it got all silent. I was taking a drink, and I hear, "Hey, Emo, can you say Hiroshima?" like like you want to talk about that's bad, like
Yeah.
that's bad as it gets, but hey, like it got me. It was a good one. And everyone on our bench, I remember Wes Walls, Mark Gregg, all the boys. Jamie McLennan was the backup at the time, and we were all sitting there laughing our butts off. It was like, yeah, you got me. Nowadays, not so cool, but back then it was pretty funny.
Yeah. Is Larry the Cable Guy would say, I don't care who you are. That's funny.
Yeah.
What's the worst post game drink you've had?
The worst post game drink?
Yep.
We talking booze?
Usually I
Or
say
we
worst
talking
post game beer, but you said you kind of gave that one up. So it could be anything.
uh well, I was the master at that, so I don't think there was a bad one, but uh early on in my career, I had a bad life-changing experience with tequila, and never drank it again. So uh, that tequila, Mr. Tequila, is the devil, and I to this day don't drink it. I don't drink anything now, but even when I was drinking,
Yeah.
all through my professional career, my adulthood, I never drank it again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really haven't had hardly any hard liquor since my bachelor party. Um, that's a story that's not safe for young ears, to be sure. But needless to say, my wife told me I can't have it. Now I've got some of Eddie Belfour's whiskey on the shelf over there. Had a little bit of that, little bits, but it's like, nope, no hard liquor, just beer for me since the bachelor party. And this was 18, almost 19 years ago.
Yeah, those experiences will do it for you, man.
Yeah. Well, I blame my cousin, and karma kind of came back to bite him because I I had enough awareness of myself that I knew I shouldn't have any more because before we even went out, I had a few beers as we were barbecuing in the backyard before we went bar hopping. And then when we got to the bars, my cousins and buddies were like, all right, for every bar we stop at, you have to have a beer and a Jaeg bomb. I was like, okay, thinking I'll pace myself. Well, after you have a few, you start drinking them quicker. And I think it was about the fourth or fifth bar we were at, and this was after having probably a 6-pack at home before we even left. I look at my best man and I'm like, I know that I'm at a point where I need a break, but I'm also at a point where if somebody brings me something, I'm still going to drink it. So I need you to like regulate things and no more. No sooner do I get done saying that, he looks at my cousin, gives him the head nod, and then my cousin proceeds to bring me a stoplight. I don't know what was in it, but one drink was green, one drink was yellow, and one drink was red. And that's when the night kind of goes blurry and dark on me. But my cousin who got me the stoplight had to then carry me up to my bed on the second floor of the house when we got home. And he was about 3 months out of having broken his back skateboarding. And he's like, oh, you're like, it just hurt my back so bad carrying up there. It's like, yeah. How do you think I felt the next couple of days after that? It was like karma, buddy. Yeah. So no hard liquor since that night. That's for sure. So when you taped your stick, did you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Heel to toe.
Okay. You're like most goalies.
I had to think about that a second. I'm like, I just did so unknowingly. Yeah. Heel to toe.
Most goalies do that. I've had a few that do it say toe to heel, and I had 2 different goalies say those that go toe to heel are psychopaths. And I'm going, I think you're overreacting, but the fact that 2 different ones said it, not knowing the other said it, I was like, there might be a correlation here. So, what was your favorite number to wear and why?
Well, in junior when I started, I think you bounce around. Like I wore 1 through my years in Lethbridge and New West, but then my last year junior, I switched to I got to pick, and I picked 40, and I think it was because I saw Peter Angelo wear it, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I wore that. But then my first year pro, I think I went to 40 right off the bat, but I was like, there was something missing. I wanted my number, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And first year in Japan, so I ended up from 12 years, I picked the number I wanted, and that was 70.
And why 70?
Everyone thinks it's because that's when I was born, 1970.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I was literally, and for the record, I am the original holder 70, not Holtby. But I'm just joking. But I wore it simply because as a kid, as forward, because I played forward first, I always loved the number 7. I thought it was the coolest number. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I have no idea why. I couldn't tell you. But then as soon as it came full circle and I could pick any number I wanted, I was like, I think 70 would be cool, man. Like I could be the 7 I wanted, but it's a goalie number, add the 0. So that's how I picked it.
All right. I like it. So the last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
That's a tough one, but I guess I'll just stick with, my motto that everybody's asked, and you've probably heard me say it on that, what's the podcast, in goal and stuff. But everyone was quite shocked when I said, just my philosophy, you have to love yourself and love what you do. And I think that I've become more convicted in my beliefs as time has gone on because of the success I've had. But I really, truly believe that if we come from a place within and that we're happy with ourselves as people, regardless of what we do in our success, whether we fail or whether we succeed, that if you have a love for yourself and love what you do and have gratitude and humility, that success will happen in front of you. So I still believe that even with, and even more so with younger people, if we can develop that philosophy and belief system in them early, that your skills will shine. You'll be lifted. I believe that wholeheartedly, even
Yep.
more so than the day I started coaching.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's you mentioned loving yourself and just love. I think that's probably the biggest thing missing in society these days is just love.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it sounds a little kumbaya-ish and all of that, but I think it's true.
Well, it's funny whenever I get together and with a new project or person and I developed a relationship, and now, especially now, because people kind of know how I am and how I coach, they're waiting for it a little bit. But as time rolls on, they're like, holy smokes. They drink the Kool-Aid and they're all in, and they're like, it becomes this big freight train of positivity and moving forward. And that I let, just as we finish off, before we finish off, if you have another question, I just want to make sure I say that my whole passion and movement right now, and I haven't done anything because of my silence and what had happened. I'm more motivated than ever to share this, and that's why I'm gonna refocus, relaunch the goalie therapist. And I don't, if I get another job, great. But my focus now is I'm gonna focus on helping others, and I've want to help young kids now, where I kind of focused more on professional NHL and the bigger money and whatever. I'm going to make it more affordable, because I feel with society, as you said, now has really created a bad environment for our kids, and not just kids, but our youth for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the depression and suicide rates and everything. I'm like, man, I can help in this area, and it'll help them become better goalies. But more importantly for me, I will hopefully help people get through this time. And I'm going to launch all of this. And I just wanted to say, no shame, and I want to plug that before I let you go.
Absolutely.
It's an important mission for me now.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put a link to the goalie therapist in the show notes too, so people
Thanks,
can
man.
find it and check it out. Because just having the right mindset and have given others grace. That's the other thing too, because you don't know what's going on. In fact, we had that discussion with our kids where they came home. They're talking about this kid who was being very nice, and we said, "Well, do you know what's going on in his home? Is there something?"
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Well, I don't know." And then they came home a couple of days later and found out he was kind of going through some stuff. And we're like, "See, he was acting out. It wasn't because he was just a mean kid. There was other things going on, and he was looking for attention. And it was unfortunately a really good learning experience for the kids." Uh-oh. I think did we?
You got to balance, because you don't get. Are you there still?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, here I am.
Okay, sorry. I lost you for a sec. It's a tough one, because the kids and what they're being force fed, and how things are nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real important message, I think, that what we just talked about, and being like you said, gracious, open, and
Mm-hmm.
listen, man. Try to listen to people, and regardless of what side you're on, what your beliefs are. If you don't have the ability to listen, uh, it doesn't become an environment where you can grow.
Yep. Well, the old saying, you learn more by listening.
I'm totally. I
Yeah.
believe that as a coach, I say that as well. Like, for advice to coaches and stuff, that's one of my biggest ones.
Yeah.
Ha- Learn to listen, because we get caught up in trying to flex our muscles and show what we can what we know and what we can teach. And the art of listening is dying, and I think it's helpful for everybody, not just coaches.
Absolutely. Well, Dusty, I think we could probably keep talking for quite some time, but it's been a fantastic conversation. I'm very grateful for your time and the conversation we've had. So thank you.
Oh, anytime, man. Is meeting you. It's always fun. I never had heard it. Sorry, are you?
Yeah, I'm here. I think, okay. Of course, right at the end is when the internet connection starts to get a little. But hey, at least now and not at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and if you're ever in the Twin Cities area, let me know, and we'll get together and we'll continue the conversation for sure.
For sure, made a new friend. Right on, man. It was great meeting you. Peace to you, brother.
Same to you. So. This episode came together quickly. I reached out to Dusty on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday we were talking. I think this conversation was fascinating considering Dusty's past. I hope you also enjoyed it and found some useful takeaways. Be sure to follow Dusty on Instagram at DustyImoo70 and look for his new podcast, The Motley Thoughts, coming out soon. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Wash Up Goalie and I'll pop up. Visit washupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights, and of course, all podcast episodes. If you want some Wash Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to visit my Threadless shop by clicking the merchandise link on my website. If you like this podcast, go listen to the BLPA Big Show. It's the OG BLPA Podcast Network show where a couple of beer league players talk beer league hockey, draft experience shenanigans, and exploits from around the game. Be sure to check out the full lineup of hockey-related podcasts as well on the Hockey Podcast Network. There are too many to list here, but shows like the Press the Zone Montreal podcast, the Catfish on Ice podcast, and the Devil's State of Mind podcast with former Tendy Talk guest Neil can be found. I need to thank the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on this episode. You can download their music on iTunes or listen wherever you stream music from. I'm always working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you are a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Right over.